Lady Folly calls aloud, laughing in the busy street. Sets her table, stolen bread, whispers, come and take a seat. Shadows gather at her gate, songs of ease and secret ways. But her guests walk past the light, down a stair they never trace. Teach us, Lord, to number all our days. Turn our feet from every passing praise. Open wide the path that leads us home. Wisdom at the door, Jesus, keep us yours. Simple hearts and restless eyes drift toward the sounding voice. Empty promises of rest, wrapped in every hidden choice. Yet beneath the silent floor lie the ones who would not see. Call us from that sinking house into life and clarity. Teach us, Lord, to number all our days. Turn our feet from every passing praise. Open wide the path that leads us home. Wisdom at the door, Jesus, keep us your door, 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 door. Set our hearts where life is found, at your table, at your word. Let the fear of you be joy, be the first and final word. God our going, God our sleep, keep us walking in your way, till we wait and see your face in the bright and endless day. Teach us, Lord, to number all our days. Turn our feet from every passing praise. Open wide the path that leads us home. Wisdom at the door, Jesus, keep us yours. Jesus, keep us yours.
The distinct sound of a grand piano fading into a complex, unresolved minor seventh chord echoes in the sanctuary. Pastor Fourier steps to the pulpit. He adjusts his spectacles, looking out over the congregation with a gaze that seems to analyze the structural integrity of the building and the spiritual state of souls simultaneously. He smiles, a genuine, disarming expression that softens the intimidating breadth of his intellect. Good morning, friends, beloved of God. If you would, please open your Bibles or swipe to them, assuming your dopamine receptors aren't currently being hijacked by a push notification for a 15% sale on patio furniture, to Proverbs chapter 9. We are concluding the preamble of Solomon's great opus today. We are looking at the closing arguments of a cosmic court case. In the red corner, we have had Lady Wisdom, whom we discussed last week, that glorious pre-incarnate resonance of the Logos, building her house, hewing her 7 pillars, preparing a feast of substantial reality. And today, in the blue corner, we meet her doppelganger, her mimic, the anti-Logos. Solomon calls her the woman Folly. Now, before we read the text, I have to tell you, I was at a symposium in Zurich last month, discussing the implications of quantum entanglement on Calvinistic determinism. Light conversational fare, really mostly just icebreaker material. and a young physicist approached me. He was brilliant, truly. He could calculate the trajectory of a particle in a supercollider, but he couldn't figure out why his third marriage was collapsing. He said to me, "Dr. Fourier, the problem with religion is that it assumes sin is a moral category. I believe sin is just a lack of data. If we knew better, we would do better." I looked at him and said, "Son, you have a PhD in astrophysics. You know exactly how many calories are in a donut. You know the physiological impact of refined sugar on arterial walls. And yet, I saw you eat 3 jelly-filled glaze bombs at the breakfast buffet." He paused. I said, "You didn't lack data. You lacked the will to resist the glaze. The glaze, my friend, was distinctively persuasive. We are not merely thinking machines, you see. We are desiring machines. And that is where the woman Folly attacks. She does not attack your logic first. She attacks your loves. Let us attend to the word of the living God." Proverbs 9:13-18. The woman Folly is loud. She is seductive and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house, on a seat at the highest places of the town, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way, "Whoever is simple, let him turn in here." And to him who lacks sense, she says, "Stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant." But he does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. The acoustics of vacuity, verse 13. Let us begin with the acoustics. Verse 13. The woman Folly is loud. She is seductive and knows nothing. In information theory, which is a field that essentially studies how we transmit signal through noise, there is a fundamental principle. As the signal-to-noise ratio decreases, the volume must often increase to compensate for the lack of clarity. Or to put it in theological terms, the less you have to say, the louder you tend to scream it. Solomon tells us that folly is loud. The Hebrew word here implies a turbulence, a clamor. It is the sonic equivalent of a panic attack. Why is she loud? Because she cannot afford silence. Silence is the natural habitat of wisdom. In silence, you have to think. In silence, the conscience, that inescapable pressure of the imago Dei within you, starts to clear its throat. Folly cannot allow you to think. She must keep the sensory input maxed out. This is why, historically, the most foolish regimes are always the ones with the most parades, the loudest rallies, and the most speakers per square inch of public space. It is why, in our modern context, we are terrified of being alone in a car without a podcast, or a beat, or a voice filling the void. We live in the age of folly because we live in the age of noise. I find it fascinating, looking at this through the lens of cognitive neuroscience for a moment. When the brain is overstimulated by auditory and visual chaos, loudness, the prefrontal cortex, which handles executive function, long-term planning, and moral reasoning, actually down-regulates. It gets tired. The amygdala and the limbic system, the lizard brain, the I want it and I want it now center, take over. Folly is loud because she is hacking your hardware. She is bypassing your theology to get to your biology. And notice the kicker in verse 13. She knows nothing. This is the great irony. She is the loudest voice in the room, and she is epistemologically bankrupt. She possesses zero data. She simulates wisdom, but there is no there. It is like a deep fake video. The pixels are arranged to look like a person. The audio waves are synthesized to sound like a voice, but there is no soul behind the eyes. It is an algorithmic hallucination. How many times, friends, have we seen this in the history of human thought? The great secular narratives of our time, Marxism, materialism, the sexual revolution, they are incredibly loud. They shout from the movies, the universities, the corporate HR memos. They demand compliance. But when you actually poke them, when you ask, On what metaphysical basis do you ground human rights if we are merely stardust that got lucky? You find that they know nothing. It is a hollow drum, but a hollow drum beats the loudest. Second, the institutionalization of error, verse 14. Now we must correct a misunderstanding. We often think of folly or sin as something that hides in dark alleys. We think of the drug dealer on the corner or the illicit affair in the cheap motel. And those things are there, certainly. But look at verse 14. She sits at the door of her house, on a seat at the highest places of the town. This is not an alleyway. In the ancient Near East, the highest places of the town were the seats of authority. This is the city council. This is the Supreme Court. This is the tenured chair at the Ivy League University. This is the board of directors for the Fortune 500. Solomon is warning us. Folly is often institutionalized. She has tenure. From a sociological perspective, we call this structural vice. Folly mimics wisdom's posture. Remember earlier in chapter 9, wisdom built a house? Well, folly has a house too. Wisdom sent out maids. Folly sits on a throne. She copies the liturgy of truth but inverts the content. This is why the reformers were so adamant about sola scriptura. We cannot trust human authority just because it sits in a high chair. The Pope sat in a high chair. The king sat in a high chair. But if the word coming out of their mouths contradicts the revealed architecture of God's reality, it is just folly in a fancy hat. I remember studying the collapse of the Bronze Age civilizations, a fascinating period around 1177 BC. Entire systems of governance collapsed almost simultaneously. Why? Because the elites, the people in the highest places, became obsessed with their own internal power struggles and completely ignored the shifting trade routes, the climate variances, and the changing warfare technologies. They sat in high places, but they were operationally blind. Folly loves a title. Folly loves a degree. I have 10 of them, so I can say this with some authority. You can be educated into imbecility. You can have so many letters after your name that you forget the alphabet of reality. If you are looking for folly today, don't just look at the sinners down at the dive bar. Look at the legislation that calls evil good and good evil. Look at the economic policies that steal from the future to pay for the present, which is just a fancy way of violating the commandment, "Thou shalt not steal," across the dimension of time. That is folly, sitting on her throne, looking respectable, wearing a suit, and bankrupting the soul of a nation. 3. The geometry of deviation, verse 15 to 16. So, who is she talking to? Verse 15, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way. She isn't calling to the people who are already in the gutter. They are already hers. She is headhunting. She is targeting the pilgrim. She is targeting you. The text says they are going straight on their way. The Hebrew imagery here is geometric. It implies a vector, a path of righteousness. These are people trying to do the right thing. They are trying to be faithful spouses, honest employees, good parents. And she says in verse 16, "Whoever is simple, let him turn in here." Wait a minute, did you catch that? If you look back at verse 4 of this same chapter, Lady Wisdom says, "Whoever is simple, let him turn in here." It is the exact same pitch, word for word. This is the terrifying brilliance of temptation. Folly does not come up to you and say, "Hello, I am the destruction of your life and the damnation of your soul. Would you like to sign up?" No, she uses the language of grace. She uses the language of rest. Wisdom says, "Come to me, you who are simple, unformed, naive, and I will give you maturity." Folly says, "Come to me, you who are simple, and I will let you stay simple." Wisdom offers transformation. Folly offers affirmation. Oh, that preaches, doesn't it? In our culture today, The highest virtue is affirming people. You are perfect just as you are. Follow your heart. Live your truth. That is the voice of folly mimicking the invitation of grace. The gospel says, you are loved, therefore you must change. Folly says, you are loved, so don't you dare change. One leads to life, the other leads to a profound stagnation that smells like death. I recall a study in behavioral economics regarding choice architecture. People will almost always choose the path of least resistance. Wisdom is an uphill climb. It requires energy expenditure. It creates spiritual lactic acid. It hurts to grow. It hurts to repent. It hurts to say, I was wrong. Folly says, turn in here. It's flat. It's easy. No judgment, just vibes. And for the simple, for the person who hasn't developed the spiritual muscle mass to discern good from evil, that offer is incredibly seductive. It looks like grace, but it is actually anesthesia. IV, the dopamine of the forbidden, verse 17. Now we get to the bait. Verse 17. Stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. Here we have the psychology of transgression. Why is stolen water sweet? Chemically, H2O is H2O. Whether you paid for the bottle or swiped it from your neighbor's fridge, the molecular structure is identical. The hydration properties are the same. So why does the stolen water taste better? Because of the transgression. We are touching on something Augustine wrestled with in his Confessions. Remember the pear tree? He stole pears, not because he was hungry. He actually threw them to the pigs, but because he loved the stealing. He loved the assertion of his will against the cosmic order. From a neurochemical standpoint, the anticipation of a reward, especially an uncertain or forbidden one, spikes dopamine far higher than a guaranteed, predictable reward. The secret nature of the sin adds a thrill. It is the adrenaline of the gamble. Bread eaten in secret. This is the affair. This is the embezzlement. This is the secret pornography addiction. This is the gossip whispered in the prayer request circle. The logic of folly is, God is holding out on you. Reality is boring. Holiness is dry. If you want the real zest of life, you have to step outside the boundaries. It is the original lie of the serpent in the garden. Did God really say, if you eat this, you will be like God? But here is the theological deception. Folly argues that restriction diminishes joy. The Bible argues that restriction creates the possibility of joy. Think of a piano. I have a doctorate in music composition, so indulge me. If I sit at a piano and I say, I refuse to be restricted by the chromatic scale, I will play the cracks between the keys, I will hit the wood, I will set the piano on fire. I am certainly being free in a chaotic sense, but I am not making music. I am making noise. To make music, to create Chopin or Rachmaninoff, I must submit to the rigid mathematical structure of the keys. I must submit to the laws of harmony and rhythm. The restriction enables the beauty. Folly tells you, steal the water, break the boundary, eat the bread in secret. She promises you a symphony, but she hands you a kazoo and tells you to blow it until you pass out. Stolen water is sweet, only for a moment. The sweetness is an illusion caused by the contrast of the forbidden. But once the thrill fades, and the thrill always fades, that is the law of diminishing returns, you are left with the aftertaste. And the aftertaste of stolen water is bitter. It is the taste of guilt. It is the taste of ashes. V. The event horizon of Sheol, verse 18. And this brings us to the terrifying conclusion, the punchline that isn't funny. Verse 18. But he does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. He does not know. This is the tragedy of the sinner, the ignorance, the lack of data integration. He thinks he is at a party. He thinks he is living his best life. He doesn't see the reality. The Hebrew word for dead here is rephaim. It refers to shades, ghosts, hollowed out things. It's not just that they are biologically ceased, it's that they are ontologically diminished. Folly doesn't just kill you, she hollows you out while you are still walking around. C.S. Lewis, who had a brain the size of a planet and a heart the size of a continent, captured this perfectly in The Great Divorce. He pictured hell not just as fire, but as fading, being less and less real. The text says her guests are in the depths of Sheol. Let me speak to you as a physicist for a moment. In general relativity, we talk about the event horizon of a black hole. It is the point of no return. Once you cross it, gravity becomes so intense that not even light can escape. Space-time itself curves in on itself. All paths lead to the singularity. All paths lead to destruction. Sin is a black hole. It looks like a star from a distance, bright, attractive, pulling you in with its gravity. Come, it says, orbit me. But the closer you get, the more the tidal forces begin to rip you apart. You think you are just flirting with folly. You think, I can handle a little stolen water. I can handle a little secret bread. But you are drifting toward the event horizon. And the terrifying thing about an event horizon is that, from the perspective of the object falling in, you don't always notice when you've crossed the line. You just keep falling. But you can never go back. The geometry of the universe has closed behind you. Her guests are in the depths of Sheol. This is the heat death of the soul, total entropy, the absolute disordering of the self. This is where the intellect of man fails. My degrees cannot save me from this gravity. My cognitive neuroscience cannot rewire the heart that loves the darkness. My understanding of history cannot prevent me from repeating it. We are by nature attracted to folly. We are born with a gravity bias toward the black hole. We love the stolen water. We crave the secret bread. We are, as the great reformers said, totally depraved, not meaning we are as bad as we could possibly be, but that every faculty of our being, mind, will, emotion, is bent toward this event horizon. We are the simple ones. We are the ones turning aside. 6. The escape velocity of grace. So, is that it? Are we doomed to spaghettification in the black hole of our own bad choices? If this were merely a lecture on ethics, I would say, try harder, be smarter, don't drink the water. But that is useless advice to a man falling into a black hole. You cannot tell a man falling into a black hole to jump out. He has no leverage. The geometry is against him. He needs an external force. He needs something or someone to enter the event horizon from the outside, grab him, and pull him out with a velocity greater than the speed of guilt. This brings us to the other meal. Folly offers stolen water and secret bread. But do you remember what wisdom offered in verses 1 to 5? She slaughtered her beasts, she mixed her wine, she set her table. And centuries later, incarnate wisdom stood up, not in the highest places of the town, but in an upper room, in the shadow of a cross, and he took bread. Not secret bread, public bread, broken bread, and he said, "This is my body, given for you." He took the cup, not stolen water, the wine of the new covenant, the wine of his own blood, and he said, "Drink of it, all of you." Folly says, "Take what isn't yours, and you will die." Jesus says, "I will let you take what is mine, my righteousness, my life, my standing with the Father, and you will live." This is the great exchange. This is the calculus of grace. It makes no sense mathematically. It is an equation where a finite integer, your sin, is subtracted from an infinite value, his righteousness, and the remainder is positive infinity. Christ entered the depths of Sheol. He went into the black hole. He went to the place of the Rephaim. He drank the cup of sour wine, the cup of God's wrath against our folly, so that we could drink the new wine of the kingdom. And because he is the author of life, the black hole could not hold him. He broke the event horizon, he rose, and now he exerts a new gravity. This is what we call irresistible grace. It is a gravitational pull stronger than your sin, stronger than your addiction to folly, stronger than your stupidity. It pulls you away from the house of the woman folly and into the house of wisdom. Conclusion. So, friends, look at your life today. Where are you hearing the loud voice? Where are you seduced by the easy path that affirms your sin rather than transforming your soul? Where are you tasting the stolen water and convincing yourself it's sweet, even as it turns your stomach? You are smart people. Many of you are educated. You have 401ks and degrees and good taste in coffee. But do not be deceived. Intelligence is not a defense against folly. Only resurrection is a defense against folly. Don't settle for the secret bread. It's moldy. It's poison. Come to the table of the King. Come to the open daylight of grace. Come and eat of the bread of life, and drink of the living water, which, if a man drinks, he will never thirst again. Let us pray. Father of lights, from whom every good and perfect gift comes down, we confess that we are easily distracted by the loud, shiny, vacuous things of this world. We have PhDs in justifying our own rebellion. We are experts in the economics of sin. Save us from our own intellects. Save us from our own appetites. Thank you that Christ did not sit in the high places, but descended to the low places, to the cross, to the grave, to pull us out of the gravity of death. Give us the taste for the true bread. We ask this in the name of the Logos made flesh, Jesus Christ. Amen.